Vanessa didn't whisper. She wanted everyone to hear. It was Thanksgiving, the fellowship hall at First Baptist, the one with folding tables lined up end to end, and styrofoam cups stacked beside the coffee urn. People were settling in, kids chasing each other between the casserole dishes, Pastor Jim fumbling with the microphone like he always did. And then Vanessa's voice cut through the chatter smooth as a radio host's. Before grace, she said, smiling wide enough to show the veneers, "Noah and I just want to let everyone know we'll be setting out a collection jar tonight for Rachel's transition fund. She'll be moving into assisted living after the holidays. Anything you can give will help." My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. The room did too. You could hear the air conditioner kick on and the faint clatter of a child dropping a spoon. She said my name like it belonged on a poster, like I was a cause, not a person. A jar with my name on it. I felt the heat climb up my neck. The smell of turkey, sweet potatoes, green bean casserole, it all went sour in an instant. Vanessa kept right on smiling, adjusting the mic like she was proud of herself. "It's a wonderful facility," she continued. "Water therapy, game nights, day trips. We just want what's best for her." My son Noah stood off to the side, hands jammed in his pockets, looking at the floor. He didn't say a word. Not then. Not even a flicker of protest. And me, I sat there with a styrofoam plate of food cooling in front of me, pretending my heart wasn't beating like it wanted out of my chest. Pastor Jim coughed into his hand, stepping forward. Maybe we'll keep personal announcements for later," he said gently. He shot me a look, the kind that said I didn't know she was going to do that. Then he bowed his head and started grace. I bowed mine too. Because that's what you do even when humiliation is dripping down your spine like ice water. When the plates started passing again, Vanessa put her mason jar right next to the pumpkin pie. Neat ribbon around the rim, a label in her tidy handwriting, Rachel's new home. She'd even drawn a little heart over the eye. The way some people wrap cruelty in craft supplies. "Miss Carroll, she's been handling church books since Reagan slipped into the seat beside me." She leaned over, voice low. We're not, that's not how we do things," she murmured. Her eyes stayed on that jar like it was a live grenade. "I'll take care of it, honey." I forced a smile. "Don't cause a scene," I whispered back. But the scene had already been caused. My boy came down the line a little later with 2 desserts balanced on his plate, pretending nothing happened. He stopped at my chair, lowered his voice. "Mom, listen. It's not what it sounded like. Vanessa she's thinking ahead. It's temporary. Just until we figure things out." I asked. His jaw worked. "We can't keep balancing everything. The kids, the mortgage, My what, Noah?" He swallowed hard. "Your needs." That word. Needs. Like I was some overgrown pet demanding kibble and space on the couch. I didn't say a word. Didn't trust myself to. The fellowship hall looked the same as it always had, construction paper turkeys taped to the wall, kids tugging at their Sunday sweaters. But to me, it felt like a courtroom, and I was the one on trial. Vanessa made her rounds, hugging necks, laughing too loud, dropping little comments about her promotion at the hospital's outreach department. She had that glow about her, the kind people get when they know they've won. She spotted me, eventually came gliding over with a smile that could slice paper. "Rachel," she said softly, "this will be good for you. Safe. Structured. You'll make friends. They have field trips." "Like 2nd grade," I muttered. She blinked, then tilted her head. That pity look I'd come to know too well. "You need more support than we can give. And frankly, the house, it's a lot." "My house," I said without thinking. Her smile faltered just for a second. "We've been over this. Monroe Hardware is gone. Times change. That building's better off in new hands. You told us you wanted what's best for Noah's future." I followed her gaze to the bulletin board behind her. A flyer was taped there. Holiday market of the Depot. Big festive letters. The address printed at the bottom, our address. The hardware store. Only it didn't say Monroe Hardware anymore. It said Depot Collective. and at the very bottom, in neat type coordinator Vanessa Hayes. My stomach dropped. She must have noticed because she turned that smile back on. Isn't it exciting, bringing life back to Main Street? Just what Cal always wanted. I could hear Cal's voice in my head, my husband gone almost 2 years now. Ink remembers Rach. Keep the papers straight, and the truth can't be erased. I didn't answer her, just tightened my grip on my cup of coffee and prayed my hands wouldn't shake. Miss Carroll appeared again, like an angel with sensible shoes. She reached past Vanessa, scooped up the jar, and slid it behind the coffee urn. Church funds don't cover private family matters. Vanessa, she said, voice flat as a judge's gavel. Vanessa laughed, that tinkly sound she uses when she's been caught. Of course, just a suggestion. But the ice in her eyes said different. And then Sheriff Dale walked in, hat in hand coat smelling of cold air. Not the kind of sheriff you see on TV, just a local man who knows everybody's grandparents. Evenin', Miss Rachel? He nodded. He handed me an envelope. This got misdelivered to the station. Thought you'd want it quick. Looks important. County Treasurer. My name printed neat in the corner. Vanessa's eyes darted to it like a cat watching a bird. What's that? She asked, too casual. Property tax notice, the sheriff said, cheerful. Monroe Hardware. Late this year, but better than never. The room didn't freeze like before, but I felt something shift. A hinge creaking. A door about to swing. I slid the envelope into my purse, my fingers steadier than they'd been all night. Thank you, I said to the sheriff. My voice came out calm. Strong even. He smiled, tipped his hat. Tell Cal I said he caught himself. His face fell. I'm sorry, Rachel. Old habit. It's all right, I told him. And for the first time all night, I meant it. Back home, I pulled the envelope out of my purse and laid it on the kitchen table. My name in bold print, my property parcel number. I stared at it for a long time, the way you look at a map before you decide if you're brave enough to take the road. Then I went to the hall closet. Pulled down the old blue tote. Under yarn and recipe cards beneath a tin of buttons I'd been saving since the kids wore Oshkosh, I found it Cal's ledger. Leather soft as a hand you trust. The brass key dangled from a red ribbon. I set it on the table right next to that envelope. Ink remembers. I ran my hand over the cover, took a breath that rattled but didn't break. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel erased. I felt ready. You'd be surprised how fast a house can stop feeling like home. One day, you're the woman who knows where every light bulb is, who taught the kids how to stir pancake batter without clumping. The next, you're a guest who's expected to knock before opening your own fridge. That's what it became like with Noah and Vanessa. After that Thanksgiving humiliation, the air in the house thickened. Not from shouting. Vanessa never raised her voice. She didn't need to. She preferred rules, subtle restrictions that made you second-guess yourself. It started with the kitchen. Rachel, she said one morning standing there in her pressed blouse before work, could you keep your cooking to afternoons? The evenings are just too chaotic, and it throws off the kids' homework routine. I nodded, even though I'd always been the one making dinner. For years, I was the reason that boy my boy ate vegetables at all. But I stepped back, gave her gleaming countertops and stainless steel stove. Then it was the laundry. Rachel, we'll do your clothes with ours. Just leave them in the basket. But somehow, mine always came back last folded, half-heartedly, wrinkled like an afterthought. By Christmas, the living room had been redecorated, white rug, pale couches, glass coffee table. Minimalist, she called it. You couldn't even set down a mug without it looking like vandalism. I spent more and more time in that upstairs guest room. 4 walls, 1 bed, and a lockbox under it holding my life in paper. I tried to talk to my daughters. Sarah, the oldest in Boston, going through a messy divorce. Mom, maybe Vanessa's right, she said over the phone. You could use a community. Assisted living isn't a bad thing. Lisa in Seattle, juggling twins with special needs. I don't have bandwidth for this right now, Mom. If she's offering you support, maybe take it. Support? That was the word they all liked. as if humiliation wrapped in ribbon was charity. I hung up each time with the same ache in my chest. My daughters weren't cruel. They were just far away, living their lives assuming their brother had me covered. They didn't see the brochures left accidentally on the counter. They didn't hear the whispers of she's slipping when Vanessa thought I was out of earshot. But I did, and it wore on me. One night, I went down for a glass of water and froze in the hallway outside their bedroom. Vanessa's voice carried through the door. She contributes nothing, Noah. Nothing. We could rent that room for real income. She's my mom, he said weakly. And I'm your wife. Your family now. We can't bleed money for someone who refuses to help herself. My throat closed up. I turned and crept back upstairs before I could hear his answer. But the thing about being underestimated is you learn to listen. You learn to watch. I noticed the mail came thinner these days. No property tax bills. No bank statements. Vanessa collected the envelopes like she was gathering laundry. I asked Noah once, "Hey, the tax notices for Monroe Hardware. Did they come yet?" He didn't meet my eyes. "Vanessa's handling all that now. Don't worry about it, Mom. Don't worry about it." I went upstairs and pulled out Cal's ledger. The leather was cracked, the pages yellowing at the edges. His handwriting, steady and neat, felt like a hand on my shoulder. Ink remembers. I flipped through, tracing the records of every purchase, every mortgage payment. I found the last line he'd ever written, paid in full, 2010. I remembered the night we'd burned the final mortgage coupon in the fireplace, Cal grinning like he'd won the lottery. "This house, this store," he'd said, raising a glass. "They'll always be ours." So why were the tax notices missing? A week later, Sheriff Dale's envelope still sat on my dresser. County Treasurer. My name, not theirs. Mine. I decided to call down to the courthouse. The clerk, a woman with a warm southern drawl, pulled up the parcel file. "Looks like it's still listed under Rachel Monroe," she said. "Paid through last quarter. Though I see there've been some inquiries recently." Inquiries. My stomach clenched. "Yes, ma'am. Someone tried requesting duplicate statements, but they weren't authorized. We flagged it." I thanked her, hung up, and sat very still. Duplicate statements. Someone wanted my records without my permission. And I didn't have to guess who. Dorothy, my neighbor of 30 years, caught me pacing on the sidewalk one afternoon. She's the kind of woman who bakes when she's mad. "You've lost weight," she said, peering at me over her glasses. "What's going on?" I almost brushed it off, but something in her eyes, the steady way she looked at me, broke me. I told her everything. Her face went hard. "Rachel, she's setting you up." "I don't." "She wants you out, honey. Wants that property under her thumb. You listen to me, check your papers. Check every last one. Don't let them tell you you're crazy." I swallowed. "I've got the ledger." Her mouth curved into a grim smile. "Then you've got the truth. That ledger'll save your hide." I went home and pulled the lockbox out from under the bed, spread everything on the quilt deeds, insurance, pension statements, and there it was, the original deed to Monroe Hardware, signed in 1985. Mine and Cal's names side by side. His gone now, but mine still standing. I pressed my hand flat on the paper. The edges crinkled, but it held firm. A strange calm settled over me. Not relief, not yet, but a steadiness. They thought I was cornered. They thought I was fading, pliable, easy to push aside. But I wasn't. I was waiting, and I was watching. Because when the breaking point came, and it would come, I'd be ready. Christmas that year didn't smell like cinnamon or pine. It smelled like paint thinner and tension. Vanessa had insisted on a renovation Christmas. New furniture, new decorations, new rules. The tree was white plastic with coordinated gold ornaments, minimalist chic, she called it. Not a single homemade ornament from the kids. None of the old wooden ones Cal carved in the garage 30 years ago. The whole house felt scrubbed of memory. I tried to keep my head down. I baked cookies, wrapped presents, kept the coffee pot full. But you can't scrub away a woman's intuition. Something was building like static before a storm, and it broke on Christmas Eve. We were all gathered in the living room, me, Noah, the kids. Vanessa's mother, a couple of neighbors she'd invited to show off the new decor. Wrapping paper, crinkled carols hummed from the speaker. I sat on the edge of the white couch, balancing a mug, trying not to spill. That's when Vanessa stood up. She had a manila envelope in her hand. "All right," she said brightly, "before we get too carried away with gifts, we need to take care of some family business." My stomach dropped. She pulled out a stack of papers, clipped neatly. "Rachel, this is a rental agreement. Starting January 1st, you'll be contributing $2,000 a month for the guest room utilities included. Below market rate, really." The room froze. I heard the tick of the clock, the rustle of paper. My granddaughter, little Lily, asked, "Why does Grandma need a paper?" But her voice was shushed. I looked at Noah. His eyes stayed glued to his lap. Vanessa laid the contract on the coffee table like a royal decree. "It's more than fair. And if you're unable—" She paused, smiling sweet as poison. "We'll need you to vacate by February. I've already toured some wonderful facilities. You'd have your own space. Meals provided, activities." Her mother nodded approvingly. "It'll be good for you, Rachel, a chance to socialize." I set my mug down carefully. My hands didn't shake this time. For a long moment, I just stared at the papers. Everyone was watching, waiting for me to protest, to cry, to make a scene. Vanessa expected it. She wanted it. But instead, I reached for my purse, slid out a worn leather folder, placed it on the table beside her neat little contract. "Funny thing," I said quietly, "I brought some paperwork too." Vanessa's smile flickered. I opened the folder. The original deed yellowed but clear. My name in bold type. Cal's signature steady and sure. "This house," I said, tapping the page. "This property, it isn't yours. It isn't Noah's. It's mine. Paid in full 2010. Never transferred, never sold. Mine." Silence fell heavy as snowfall. Noah's head jerked up. "Mom, what are you—" "Stop." I cut him off, my voice steady. "You knew. Or you chose not to know. Either way, you let her build a life on something that wasn't hers." Vanessa's laugh was brittle. "Rachel, you're confused. The building was transferred when—" "Transferred." I pulled out the property tax notice Sheriff Dale had handed me, slid it across the table. Strange, county records still list Rachel Monroe as sole owner, and the clerk at the courthouse was kind enough to tell me about certain inquiries. Duplicate statements requested. Forged signatures attempted. Her face drained of color. I leaned in, lowering my voice so only she and Noah could hear, but the room was so quiet, everyone caught every word. "That's fraud, Vanessa. Elder abuse. Identity theft. You don't get to throw me out of my own house. You don't get to steal what Cal built with his hands and I held together with mine." The neighbors shifted uncomfortably. Her mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish. The children clutched their toys tighter, sensing something big had cracked open. Vanessa tried again, her voice sharp now. "You're making baseless accusations. This is exactly why you need professional care. You're paranoid, inventing conspiracies." But I wasn't alone this time. Miss Carroll, who'd joined us after church, stepped forward. "Baseless." She pointed at the papers. "That's a legal deed. I've balanced books my whole life. Vanessa Hayes, and I know forged signatures when I see them. Don't you dare gaslight this woman in front of her grandchildren." The room buzzed. Gasps, whispers, a child starting to cry. I sat back, folded my hands in my lap. Calm. Because the thing about truth is, you don't have to shout it. You just have to set it down on the table and let it shine. Noah finally found his voice. "Mom, we were going to fix it. Pay you back. We just needed—" I turned my eyes on him. My boy, my only son, needed what Noah needed me gone. Needed my house for your wife's empire. He wilted under my stare. "I'm sorry, but it was too late." Vanessa tried one last time, her mask slipping voice shrill. "You vindictive old woman. After everything we've done for you." "Done to me," I corrected softly. She stood there, shaking papers slipping from her hand. For the first time, she looked small, And me, I felt taller than I had in years. I gathered my folder, slid the deed back inside. You have until New Year's Day to remove your belongings, I said. My voice was calm, but it carried. This is my house, my property, my legacy, and you will not steal it from me. No one argued, no one dared. The storm had broken, and for once, I wasn't the one left in ruins. The thing about small towns is news doesn't walk, it runs. By the time New Year's came, everyone from the diner waitress to the postmaster knew what had happened in my living room. And the whispers weren't about me anymore. They were about Vanessa. It started with the book club. Half the women who'd once flocked to her wine and cheese nights suddenly couldn't make it. Then her hospital outreach committee asked her to step back while they reviewed certain financial discrepancies. Funny how quickly a queen loses her crown once people realize it's borrowed. I didn't have to lift a finger. The truth had a way of spreading itself. Noah packed their things in silence. I stood in the doorway of the guest room, my guest room now, watching him shove clothes into suitcases, toys into boxes. His shoulders sagged like a man twice his age. "Mom," he said finally, not looking at me, "we never meant to hurt you." I let the words hang. "Then why did you?" I asked. He didn't answer. Just zipped the suitcase too hard, the sound harsh in the quiet. Vanessa stormed through the hallway, heels clacking, barking orders like a general retreating from a lost war. "Don't forget the chargers, Noah, and grab the kids' tablets. We're not leaving anything behind." I almost laughed. Not leaving anything behind. She'd already left behind her reputation, her standing, her mask of sweetness. Everything else fit in cardboard boxes. When the last car door slammed and their SUV pulled out of my driveway, I stood at the window. The house was quiet. For the first time in 3 years, it felt like mine again. I walked through, slowly touching the walls, the counters. Vanessa's remodels were still there, her sleek kitchen, her expensive pool. But instead of bitterness, I felt something unexpected. Satisfaction. She'd built her dream house with money she tried to steal from me, and now it was mine. All of it. Poetic justice. Of course, life didn't just smooth out. There were lawyers, paperwork, meetings at the courthouse. Pastor Jim connected me with a local attorney, Mr. Walker, gray-haired patient. He took one look at my folder of documents at Cal's meticulous ledger and said, "Mrs. Monroe, you've got a stronger case than you realize. This isn't just family drama. This is fraud." Hearing it put plain like that, fraud, it chilled me. But it also steadied me. Because fraud can be proven. Fraud can be punished. We filed charges, identity theft, forgery, elder exploitation, words I never thought would be attached to my own family. But sometimes justice wears harsh labels. The community split down the middle. Some said I was brave. Others whispered I was cruel, dragging my own son into court. But those whispers didn't sting the way they once would have. Because for every doubter, there was someone else, like Miss Carol or Dorothy, from 2 houses down, who pulled me aside at the grocery store and whispered, "Good for you." About time, someone stood up to her, and I realized I wasn't alone anymore. I changed the locks, put the house in order, cleared out the last traces of Vanessa's scented candles and staged magazine decor, and in the empty space, I began to breathe again. I brought back Cal's old rocking chair, dug out the box of wooden ornaments for next Christmas, hung family photos she'd tucked away in drawers. It wasn't about nostalgia. It was about reclaiming what mattered. This wasn't just a house. It was memory, legacy, a fortress I almost surrendered without a fight. Never again. The kids, that was harder. They didn't understand. How could they? One week they were playing in Grammy's yard, the next, they were whisked away, told their grandmother had gone crazy. I sent cards for their birthdays, letters they might not even see, but I didn't chase them. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is wait. And I would wait for as long as it took. Noah called once, voice low, ashamed. "Mom, Vanessa's gone. She left me." I closed my eyes, listening. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice cracking. "For everything." But apologies are strange things. Sometimes they come too late. I hope you find your way, I told him. And I meant it, but I didn't invite him back. Some doors once shut stay that way. Instead, I built new doors. Dorothy started coming by every Friday night with a deck of cards and a bottle of cheap wine. Miss Carroll dropped off casseroles like clockwork. Pastor Jim asked me to help with the church's senior outreach. No one better to keep us organized, he said. For the first time in years, I wasn't shrinking to fit someone else's house. I was growing back into my own. On a chilly March morning, I stood outside Monroe Hardware. The old brick building was weathered but solid, just like me. The county clerk handed me a fresh, certified copy of the deed. My name, clear, uncontested. This is yours, he said, smiling. I ran my fingers over the embossed seal, and for the first time since Cal died, I felt something warm in my chest. Not just grief, not just survival. Pride. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the one Vanessa had wanted to replace with something modern. I opened Cal's ledger, turned to the last page. His handwriting ended in 2010, the day we paid off the mortgage. Below it, in my own hand, I wrote, March 12, 2023, reclaimed. Not just the house, myself. And I closed the book with steady hands. Because the rebuilding had already begun. Peace doesn't always arrive with trumpets. Most of the time, it tiptoes in when you're washing dishes, or when you catch your own reflection and realize you're not flinching anymore. That's how it found me, quiet, steady, like a friend who shows up late but refuses to leave again. The scandal burned through town faster than dry leaves in October. By spring, everyone had heard Vanessa exposed Noah complicit Rachel Monroe, not the weak, fading widow they'd assumed. The whispers at church changed. No one was calling me a burden anymore. Instead, I heard she stood her ground. She didn't let them take her. That shift mattered. Not because I wanted their approval, but because I'd spent too long shrinking. And now, finally, I could stretch again. I started small, pulled Cal's old rocking chair out of storage, set it by the window where morning light hits just right. Hung the photos Vanessa had tucked away, wedding snapshots, kids with gap-toothed grins, Cal holding up a bass he caught at the lake. One afternoon, I stood in the master bedroom she'd claimed as hers, the California King still smelling faintly of her perfume. I opened the windows wide, let the wind carry out whatever pieces of her lingered. This is mine now, I whispered. And it felt true. But rebuilding isn't just about furniture and fresh air. It's about people, the right ones. Dorothy became my shadow. Every evening, she knocked on the back door, sometimes with pie, sometimes with nothing but her company. We'd sit on the porch, watching the pool Vanessa installed, glow under the lights. She thought she was building her kingdom, Dorothy would say, shaking her head. But turns out she was just renovating yours. And I'd laugh because there was truth in it, a kind of poetic justice money can't buy. Miss Carroll came too. She'd stop by with church paperwork or casseroles, or just to gossip. More than once she said, Rachel, you saved more than yourself. You reminded all of us that silence isn't kindness, it's surrender. Those words sank deep, because for a long time I had surrendered. Not in rage or laziness, but in grief. I let loneliness convince me that any treatment, even cruel, was better than no company at all. But I knew better now. I began volunteering at the senior center twice a week. Helping with forms, explaining insurance, teaching people how to check their credit. Bring your papers, I told them. All of them. Don't ever hand them over without keeping a copy. They called me their watchdog, their warrior, their example. Imagine that a woman once called a freeloader, now teaching others how not to be robbed of their dignity. Life has a way of circling back. Sarah and Lisa, they came around slowly. Phone calls at first. Apologies that sounded stiff, like words rehearsed in front of a mirror. Mom, I'm sorry we didn't believe you, Sarah said one night. Her voice broke. We thought you were just exaggerating. We didn't understand. I didn't rush to comfort her. Family's not supposed to need convincing, I told her softly. But thank you for saying it. Lisa's call came weeks later, the twins shrieking in the background. Mom, I know we failed you. I don't expect forgiveness right away, but I want to try again. I let them both speak. I didn't slam doors, but I didn't fling them wide open either. Forgiveness, I'd learned, is a gift you give yourself first. Trust, that's a bridge built plank by plank, not overnight. And I had time. Noah, that was harder. He wrote letters, dozens of them. Long, rambling things filled with apologies, excuses, stories about therapy and realizations. Sometimes I read them. Sometimes I slid them straight into the drawer without opening. One I remember clearly, Mom, I let her control me. I thought keeping peace was the same as keeping family together. I see now it was cowardice. Please give me another chance. I set that letter down, staring at the handwriting I'd taught him in first grade. And I thought cowardice is still a choice. Maybe one day, when enough years have passed, I'll meet him for coffee. Maybe. But for now, my peace depended on keeping that boundary firm. I forgave him in my heart because bitterness is poison, but I did not welcome him back into my life. That's the difference people forget. Forgiveness is freedom, not a hall pass. The grandkids, they were caught in the crossfire, too young to understand, too tangled in their mother's bitterness. I send birthday cards, Christmas presents, notes that say, Grandma loves you always. Maybe they'll read them, maybe they won't. Maybe one day when they're grown, they'll come find me and ask for the truth. And when they do, I'll tell them not the ugly details, but the lesson underneath. That love without respect isn't love. And silence in the face of cruelty isn't kindness, it's complicity. There's a saying Cal used to whisper whenever we fixed something together at the store. Leave it stronger than you found it. That's what I've tried to do. Not just with the house, but with myself. Because survival is one thing. Rebuilding is another. And reclaiming, that's the truest kind of strength. I remember one Sunday after service, Pastor Jim asked me to speak to the youth group. They need to hear from someone who's been through the fire and walked out, he said. So I told them my story. Not every sordid detail, just enough. The humiliation, the betrayal, the papers on the table, the choice to stand up when it would have been easier to stay quiet. A teenage girl in the back raised her hand. Weren't you scared? She asked. Terrified, I told her. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's deciding that your dignity matters more than your comfort. And once you taste that truth, you can't go back. She nodded, eyes wide, and in that moment I realized my story wasn't just mine anymore. It was a torch being passed. On the first warm night of summer, I sat by the pool. Yes, the pool Vanessa built with money she tried to steal from me. Dorothy was beside me sipping sweet tea. Miss Carroll had brought over her famous chess pie. To Rachel, Dorothy toasted, "Who showed us all that age doesn't mean weakness." I clinked my glass against hers. To standing up, I said, "Even when your knees shake." We laughed. We ate pie. Fireflies blinked in the yard. And I thought, this is family. This is what it should have been all along. Later that night, I opened Cal's ledger. The leather soft, the pages full of numbers and memories. On the very last page, under his handwriting, I'd written months ago. Reclaimed. Not just the house. Myself. This time I added one more line. And now I leave it stronger than I found it. I closed the book, set it on the table, and let the silence of my home wrap around me. Because this was my legacy now. Not just brick and wood, not just property. My legacy was the lesson that you are never too old, too dismissed, too underestimated to reclaim your worth. That peace doesn't come from being liked, but from standing firm. And that dignity, once you claim it, is yours forever. When I finally went to bed that night, I dreamed of Cal. He wasn't sick, wasn't weak. He was laughing LEDGER under his arm, waving to me from the porch of Monroe Hardware. And I woke with tears on my cheeks. But they weren't bitter. They were the kind you cry when you finally come home.